6, 5. Manoj.
Go live?
Yes, yes.
Good morning to all the speakers and delegates attending this ABIS 2020 conference and expo. We have an exciting conference session today on the topic redefining education for media and entertainment. And we have esteemed panelists lined up for the session. The session is going to be moderated by Mr. Chaitanya Chinchlikar, Vice President and Business Head, Whistling Woods International. And the eminent speaker lineup includes Meghna Ghai-Puri, President, Whistling Woods International, Mr. Phani Tetali, Professor and Head, IDC School of Design, IIT Bombay, Mr. Sekhar Mukherjee, Director of National Institute of Design, Andhra Pradesh, and Mr. Rahul Karthikeyan, Head Marketing, UpGrad. Just a brief introduction on the speakers. I would like to start my introduction with Mr. Chaitanya Chinchlikar. Chaitanya has a multifaceted 2-decade career spanning the film and creative arts industry. He's currently the Vice President at Whistling Woods International, India's premier film and creative arts institute. He also serves as the Chief Technology Officer for the institute and heads the emerging media department. Over the past decade and a half, he has been instrumental in the mainstream of film and creative arts education in India and evangelizing of multiple new and emerging technologies into the mainstream education at Whistling Woods, into the film, communication, and creative arts industry at large. Going over to Rahul Karthikeyan. Rahul is Head Marketing at UpGrad, India's largest online higher education company. Prior to UpGrad, Rahul's stint was with Media Edge CIA, now called Wavemaker, part of Group M, where he headed the West region and worked with key clients like GoDaddy, Mercedes India, Eureka Forbes, etc. to successfully scale up their business, and was also part of the initial team that launched Netflix in India. Coming to Meghna Ghai-Puri. Meghna has had a extensive stint in the education industry as President of Whistling Woods International. Her contributions include primary commandant to filmmaker Subhash Ghai's vision of creating a world-class institute for media education in India. Meghna has been instrumental in setting up of Whistling Woods International Institution of Film, Communication, and Creative Arts. As president, she is responsible for the day-to-day functioning of the institute and is a key player in the long-term vision and strategy of Whistling Woods International. She has an amazing achievement and awards to her credit. She has been the best social art activist for education to underprivileged class of citizens, 13th National Education Summit 2019, and outstanding contribution to education in field of cinema, The Economics Times, March 2019. Coming to Mr. Phani Tetali. Phani is currently the head of IDC School of Design, IIT Bombay. Phani's experience includes producing several games for various platforms, including Archie's Riverdale Run, an Xbox 360 game based on the highly popular Archie games. He is an animation consultant and passionate cartoonist and illustrator. He joined IDC IIT Bombay as a faculty member in 2009. His overall experience spans close to 30 years. In the year 2017, IIT Bombay awarded him with the SP Sukhatme Award for Excellence in Teaching. His passion for cartooning won him recognition from the national newspaper, The Times of India, as one of the top cartoonists in India. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Sekhar Mukherjee, Director of National Institute of Design, Andhra Pradesh, design educator, animator, cartoonist, festival director, and graphic storyteller. An alumni of NID, Professor Sekhar Mukherjee was a senior faculty of communication design with NID Ahmedabad from 2002 to 2018. After graduating in commerce, he decided to follow his passion as his profession and started his career as a newspaper cartoonist, illustrator, and infographics artist at Economic Times, Calcutta, before he joined NIT to study animation film design in 1992. In 2018, he took charge as director of NID Andhra Pradesh, a baby design school of the same breed. And we are all looking forward to the setting up this NID Andhra Pradesh. Thanking you all for your participation, and over to you, Chaitanya, for an exciting round of panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Hello, welcome. Good morning, everybody. Good to have all of you on board. Like Manoj mentioned, we will try and talk about how media and entertainment education has been changed, needs to be changed in order to cater for students as well as the industry of today as well as tomorrow. So before we get into Q&A and me asking you about it, I just want to set up the session with just to kind of give everybody an idea as to what it is that we're dealing with. Right. So I just want to do a quick presentation for them. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about redefining media and entertainment education, right? So we would, over the many millennia that we have lived, we have come through various ages. We have moved from the stone to the medieval to the industrial to the information, and I believe that we are now in the immersive and intelligent age. Key aspects of it are still falling into place. We are in a stage of transition, but we are basically somewhere in between this, approaching the immersive and intelligent age. And this is the other challenge at our disposal. We have the largest number of people that we have to educate, train, get ready to be, useful to society. And this is the biggest challenge that the world has ever had. And it, every single day it continues to grow. So we are still at least 2 decades away from hitting the population peak of the earth. So, we still have a couple of decades of work ahead of us. And you can see, how steep the rise has been since say 1700 or 1800 to 2019. So when we talk about the immersive and intelligent age, what are the key things that are going on, right? So AI has started to take over a lot of problem solving and analytical aspects of life. Wearables, on-person tech has reduced the requirement for information retention. I don't think we remember as many telephone numbers today as we did maybe 20 years ago. Also the requirement of calculation and memorization has almost disappeared. A lot of low-end left brain activities of analytical problem solving are easily being done by the AI CV/ML trio. I mean, a clear example of that is the IBM Watson, and what the IBM Watson has done to entry-level jobs for lawyers in the US, where it actually has a 95% success rate at basic law interpretation as compared to a 65% success rate that entry-level lawyers have for it, right? So one device has kind of halved the employment percentage of young emerging lawyers in the US. This is just an example. Similarly, just like information retention is gone, a lot of lower level problem solving and analytical skills will be redundant too. So what are the human skills that we will need? We will need which is essentially, we will be needing human skills for creative thinking, which is design thinking, strategic thinking, lateral thinking, and ideation, right? At least for the foreseeable future, we don't see machines that can do this, and hopefully it never happens. But, for now, these are actually a significant element of what human skills are going to be needed. Just some realities. The global top 10 in demand or fastest growing careers of 2019 did not exist in 2006. So what will the situation be in 2030 or 2040? A student who enrolls for a degree in 2020 at the age of 18 will be at the peak of his or her career in 2040 at age 38. What career will she be working in? We honestly have very little idea. Even within the media and entertainment industry, this is what was happening in 2009, and look at what is happening in 2019. 3 or 4 jobs that were involved with this are being replaced by one job that is 1 or 2 jobs that the drone has created, which are completely different from the image up top. So educational institutions, what are the 3 key areas that, there are many, but these are the 3 key areas where their goals are, which is employment, entrepreneurship, and research. And, again, if we break down to a very, very base level what educational institutions do. They do education, they do training, and they enable ideation. So given this matrix, how do we talk about how education, training, and ideation create employment, entrepreneurship, and research into the industry? And that is really what we're going to be talking about today. So this is, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So, this is the setup. This is the world that we're going to be talking about. And, the first question I'd like to ask is to Phani. So, whether it's Whistling Woods, whether it's NID, whether it's Upgrad, we are newer entrants into the media and entertainment education space. IIT as an institution has been doing education, entrepreneurship, and research for decades. And so in a way for y'all, it's a lateral transition of taking these three goals and applying them into the film and media and creative arts industry as well. So, can you talk a little bit about what your thought process has been on, since these are three core things that IIT does so well anyway, how have you done that transition into the M&E space?
Thanks, Chaitanya. See, I'll just probably start with a small history of what we have been doing and where we are right now. IIT Bombay has been around for 60 years, and we're very happy that it's been given the status of Institute of Eminence. And so there is a lot of technology research, especially in the cutting edge areas, that happens. And IDC School of Design has been around for 50 years now. We recently celebrated a Golden Jubilee, and we have been in design education for 50 years. All right. So now we do have a separate entrance examination that we conduct called the Common Entrance Exam for Design, which we take students from across the country for masters. They might have done graduation in various fields, but we decide that they can come and we have a 2-year master's degree program in which we kind of bring them onto the same platform and teach them the basics of design. We have design education in 5 different areas: industrial design, mobility and vehicle design, interaction design, animation, and communication design. Right. So how it used to be was, there are quite a few things that I can react to with the presentation that you made just now. And I do agree with you that, all these changes are happening, and that it's slowly moving towards an immersive and intelligent age, right? But I think what we are trying to do here is to see if we can improve, we can help the students get something that is called a visual vocabulary. Okay, so that's how I want to put it. I mean, it's just like we learn language, and just like we have vocabulary of words for speaking various languages to express our feelings and communicate. I think visual vocabulary is something that we feel is very important for students, and that comes simply out of experience of actually seeing things and imbibing visuals into yourself. And so I feel, in spite of all these equipment that are coming in and helping things much easier, we definitely have to still rely on our own basic innate abilities to retain and improve our visual vocabulary. So that won't go away, is what I feel. We do have a lot of students from within the IIT community who are doing their engineering, wanting to come and do design education, but I'll probably come to that a little later. But I just wanted to react to what you showed, and I feel that it's not going to go away. We still have to rely a lot on our own innate abilities as human beings.
Yeah, actually, in fact, that is actually what will take more primacy rather than the executive actions that humans have been taking of manufacturing and labor and working and are repetitive performing activities, those will actually go away. And it's going to be the more human things which will take precedence, like creative thinking, strategic thinking, lateral thinking, design thinking, right? Which is what is something that we really need to focus on. And we need to focus on with keeping education, entrepreneurship, and research in mind. So, IIT has been doing that pretty well for, engineering and other tech-related areas. And, we are, hoping that the IDC has obviously continued to do that as well.
Yes, IDC actually, there's another thing about industries, the engineering industry, that when IIT started, that was around 60 years back. And the most important thing for India at that point of time was to set up large factories and industries. And so core engineering got primary importance at that point of time. And slowly information technology started sometime around the 80s and 90s. And so there was a shift in the way students looked at what they could do after their graduation, right? So similarly in IDC also, when we started IDC, the intention was to meet the unmet needs of India. That was the mission with which we started, and to a large extent we still stick to that mission, is to meet the unmet needs of India. And so there are so many things that are still yet to be solved in Indian society, and through design we plan to do that. Of course, information technology could be one, but this is one of the primary things that we look at in IDC.
Great, thanks. Meghna, we've often spoken about building out institutions for the future, and especially because I've also seen it so closely. Whistling Woods is one such institution that we have built out for the future. So could you talk a little bit about what's been the key vision underlying Whistling Woods and its attempt at building out an institution to the future, and what your approach is to creativity and education methodology?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. And I hope everyone is in good health. Everyone who's joined this webinar, thank you so much. And thank you for the hosts of this session, Broadcast India, for having us. I think it's important. I think this is a really good step to have education related panels in forums like that, because for many years, we've been kind of restricted to just education. But I think that training and human resources, when it comes to creativity, is equally important, actually more important than anything else. So while I know that this conference is all about technology, and we are advancing with technology when it comes to the media and entertainment industry, I think that the basis of everything in this industry starts with the creative mind. And that really was the vision of Whistling Woods as well. The basis was a creative thinker, a creative man who thought of this idea that he wanted to start a school in the middle of Mumbai, with no idea of how we were going to run the school, what we were going to do. It was something so unique. We definitely did not want to do what others had done in India, the mistakes that they had made. So it was a huge learning curve. And the journey really started 20 years ago for me, when I just returned from the UK and was told that we're building this school. So, the idea was that, the good thing, the advantage of Whistling Woods really at that point was that we were starting off fresh. We knew that we knew we had to learn from mistakes that were already made, but at the same time, we knew that we were from the industry, so we wanted which would cater to the industry. So the first thing we did was, of course, build a beautiful campus, bigger, and more high-tech than that we could afford at that point. But we knew that, the industry is very dynamic, and we will need space eventually, and we will need to keep growing. And that's exactly what has happened. In the last 15 years, our vision and mission hasn't changed. Providing quality education to the creative students, which again is a huge challenge. I'm sure my co-panelists will agree. With creative minds as faculty as well as students, there can be a lot of clashes. So they all needed an uncreative person like me and that actually is going to bring me to my next point as well. But it needed somebody like me to kind of come in and put things together. And I think that along with our team on campus, along with a lot of experts from the industry, we were really able to build a school which was a balance of creativity, technology, and business. So bringing those three elements together was definitely challenging, but I think, and it remains to be a challenge, because I think that things are so dynamic in the industry. 2020 has taught the entertainment industry how things can really change. But I think that that we managed to do that because of the kind of people we had on board. So I think it's important for every educational institute to understand how important the industry is, how important the people from the industry are to keep coming back to the campus and teaching your students, how it's important for your students to keep being engaged. That constant engagement with the industry is so important, because only then will they get the confidence when they get out of of your institute to be able to cope with what's going on in the industry. So those are the things that we've really stuck to in terms of our vision and in terms of creating what we have at Whistling Woods today.
Thank you so much, Meghna. Now coming to Sekhar. So, Sekhar, and, you've now actually had two roles. One is as a senior, how should I say? I mean, as a senior creative educator at one of India's premier and, kind of the foundation, the benchmark institution for design in India. And then moving on to setting up an entirely new institution right from the ground up, right? So, how do you take a particular pedagogy that has been created 50 years ago and, morph it for today's times to build out a new one for, a new generation, and, make sure that this institute, the Vijayawada one, the Vijayawada, Vijayawada, sorry. So that, while it still continues to retain the essence of the NID Ahmedabad, it also, has its own, presence.
Yeah, thank you, Chaitanya, and thank you all of you for organizing such time-relevant webinar, and it's a kind of transition time we are all going through, because it's a paradigm shift, and how we cope with that, and we are all baffling with time. I was telling, Chaitanya, my bad habit is I might not be very black and white in my answer. There might be a lot of subtext and subversions, like how cinema generally we look at it as. Yeah. So definitely, I think this is a question I am also carrying with, my journey, looking back, being a student of NID and then going back to alma mater purely because I felt that, and now the role as a director setting up NID with a brand name which created a myth, and sometimes it's also become monomyth, and that monomyth creates a heavy weight that you have to be something, but without realizing the fact that this is the point. I'm trying to simplify it. Like, of course, NID has a lot of good things which I experienced being a student, and also during my teaching days or faculty days. It is something where an institute which is under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and definitely it's very clear that we are not an university, So for most of the students or those who become graduate, end of the day, unless they go for further study, I don't think their certificate matters. And what I really liked about some of the good things, for example, that of course the selection process has its own layers of challenges, but once they get through, there is no further exam. So that is another beautiful thing where you actually learn through mentorship. So the mentorship, and when I see my faculties, when I was a student, most of the time, and not necessarily, even though I studied animation, it was multidisciplinary institute. So most of the time I spent either in textile or ceramic studios, because perhaps those are the two disciplines is always hands-on, and no software can replace that.
Correct.
Yeah, unless there isn't some kind of course, there are 3D prototyping and etc. etc. But still, clay is clay, or textile material is textile material. So looking back, fast forward, I feel they.
We seem to have lost him. Sekhar, Hemant, can you just call Sekhar? I think we've lost him and he's not realized it.
Yes, we'll just do that. I think he's dropped off.
No problem. So let me come to Rahul. Rahul, you are, Upgrad is in a way a child of the immersive and intelligent age.
Yes,
I mean,
my excitement of going back in various capacity. I always wanted which can run as a half studio and half training. Hello. Yeah, I think, this is another challenge we'll talk about in maybe later questions, which will come, the technology.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sekhar. We missed you. We lost you in between. I think there was an internet issue. Yes, I'll come back to you. I was in the middle of asking Rahul a question.
No, I think let him finish now. If you can just summarize.
Okay, carry on. Yeah.
I won't prolong it. I just wanted to say that today in this new NIDs, there are, along with my role there are 3 more NIDs across in Jorat, in Bhopal, in Haryana. And it got an autonomous status, like that is the best part of it. So I look at it in short, that best practice of the past and relevance of today. That should be perhaps the concoction to take this NID further. And because there is always a pressure of monomyth, and how to, like, students always compare with Ahmedabad is like that. It's like a fast world of NID, and we are all ugly ducklings. So this will be the challenge to talk about.
Actually, you've given me a good line to segue to Rahul, right? Which is taking the learnings of the past and making it relevant today. So, Upgrad is, like I said, is a child of both the information and the immersive and intelligent age. So, what are some of the things that you guys have taken from great institutions that have been created in India so far, and then applied them to a model which at the core of it is essentially an employment and entrepreneurship model?
Yeah, so I think it's Upgrad is almost now 5.5 years old, right? So it's very, very recent, right? So as against the stalwarts, all of you been there for many years, right? So one of the biggest challenges, but when we got into the space was online education. Upskilling was the primary goal, and how do we stay relevant? So what we believe in our guiding principles is all about lifelong learning. So while what we've understood in the last couple of decades is the upskilling, in fact, in the category or in the space that you're in also is a requirement right now because of the way transitions are happening, right? How the world is changing. You showed an example of just in the 10 years gap itself, right? So how drones have now replaced jobs. So I think the entire founders came up with that vision in terms of how do we now build it and make it more, I'll say more flexible and more up to date in terms of the current demand generation, right? So surprisingly, our first program that we launched by looking at this was entrepreneurship. It was our flagship course when we started off with that. And ever since then, it's been a growth trajectory. We've been growing into our space, right? So I'll say our biggest learning was when we kind of launched into around data science and machine learning. It became the biggest demand generation for us, right? So it was very imperative to know that how much of upskilling is needed in that space, which means the entire industry is moving so quickly in this entire genre, right? It became evident for them to come and upskill quickly, and transition, because whatever you were doing 3 years back does not hold true anymore. And that's how the transition has been. So while we were working with all the universities very, very quickly, I think one thing what we brought in was being more relevant, take up the entire education system, start moving into online as well. I think that was one. Second is maintain the essence of learning. We don't want to compromise on the essence of learning. But what it has to also have is adding a nudge to the relevance and the recency of how the content is moving, right? So the biggest advantage that we could bring in was constantly update our learning system and basis the current demand, right? So At the back end, we do a lot of research work. There's a content team which is constantly doing research, understanding what the current demand generation is moving towards, and then how do we now incorporate that, on the go for our existing learners as well, so that when they go out, and eventually it's all about, as I said, lifelong learning and upskilling, right? So that's our key metrics as well. So it's not just about getting the students onboarded, but if they're not upskilling in their career, we don't see ourselves as a success, right? So, and that's where the defining factor is how many lives or how many upskilling have we done, right? So, and once we kind of we're able to relate to that, I think that's we're in there, right? So our primary goal is, in this lifelong learning, can I stay with that student for the next 10 years, do that entire hand holding and stay relevant with them, help him out, right? So help him or her out. So I think that's where Upgrade came into picture. So it's a new era. It's completely a new way of probably learning right now. I think, post pandemic, this entire era has just kind of spiked up a lot. A lot of students have now moved into online space, but we want to focus on this very, very critically. So even in our marketing communications across the board, even when our learners are coming, the key essence is, to not compromise on the quality of education. Maintain, go back how learning was itself. We've just shifted it into online as well, but stay relevant, and stay updated for our students, so that when they get into a job, the quality of output has to be better and much more. So yeah,
thanks so much, Rahul. The next question, and I'd like to have quicker and shorter answers on this one particular, because we've got some more stuff to talk about. So I want to talk about this. So, Sekhar spoke about monomyths. One of the biggest myths that exists today, or I may not call it a myth, but something that's not well defined, is this concept of creativity. Okay, am I a creative person or not, right? As if you can't be one without the other. So, this is something that I want to just get your input from. So, Meghna, I mean, what has Whistling Woods' approach been to creative education? You're on mute.
Thanks. Yeah. So, I think creativity is anyone can be creative, and at the same time you can be very creative and come up with something which is not creative at all. You don't like it. So it's such a subjective thing to be creative. So I tell people that I'm not a creative person, but a lot of people see a lot of the things that I do and they're like, why didn't you get into it? So I think it's that moment, that where you are and what you create in that moment is what brings out your creativity. Now, I feel everybody is creative. Everybody is born with an innate talent. It needs grooming, it needs honing, and it needs mentorship. And we see this a lot at Whistling Woods. So Whistling Woods now is not just a film school. We have many other creative programs. We have a design and communication school. We have a production design program. We have fashion design. We have music composition. So we have such a different world of creative students there. And I see a lot of kids when I go into the design summatives, for example, when they're displaying their final semester work, and I go and talk to each one of them to ask them about their project. A lot of them couldn't even draw well when they entered Whistling Woods. And if you see their work now, it is absolutely magnificent. I mean, it gives me hope because I can't even draw like a circle, right? And it gives me hope when I look at their work, thinking that what education and mentorship can do to a child. And I feel like every parent needs to really, really hone that creativity in their children. I think for the longest time in India, we've looked at creativity and creative education as a hobby. Yeah. So till you're in the 6th and 7th, you'll learn to dance, you'll learn to sing, you'll learn to, draw. And as soon as the curriculum and the exam pressure start, you stop all of that and just focus on math, science, history, geography, and just get good grades in your 10th and good grades in your 12th and get to the best college you can. And then starts that whole rat race. So I feel like it's so important that people understand the importance of creative education. And like Rahul said, it needs upskilling. throughout your life. In the pandemic itself, we've seen so many adults take up, doodling classes or creative classes or learn a new skill. And I think 2020 that way has brought in so much in people's lives. I want to, in fact, answer add to what Rahul said as well, that until 2019, online, like getting people to get online to do a course was like, oh, we'll never learn anything. And in 2020, people are actually seeking new types of courses. So we have an online filmmaking school called Virtual Academy, and we've seen such a surge in people joining it, and all types, all age groups of people. So it's so wonderful to see that people want to be educated in creativity. At Whistling Woods, though, I feel we have brought a lot of structure to our learning from when we started. So kind of opposite to what Sekhar was saying, but we do have exams, and we have an association with Tata Institute of Social Sciences. So we do have structure. And I feel that that in the industry, every creative person, when they get into the space, as they join employment, they need that structure. They need that training so that they are disciplined. For the longest time, there's this stereotype that creative people don't have to be disciplined. But in our industry, as it becomes more and more commercial, we need that discipline to come on the sets, in the ad agencies, in the fashion design realm. So I feel like the education really doesn't even just hone their talent as creators, but it also gives them that discipline so that they can go out there and work. So it's a very, according to me, creativity has to be honed, it has to be mentored, and there has to be a balance between, creative education and discipline. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Phani?
Yeah, how I look at it is creativity is not something that suddenly comes from like a bolt from out of the sky and then lands on somebody. I think it can be nurtured in people. I think the more you observe things around you, the more ideas you get, as creative ideas you get. Actually, everything is happening around us, and there are stories happening around us. We just need to open our eyes to those stories. And this is typically what we try to train our students in, to see around them and to observe things that are happening. So I think if we don't, then we've missed out on quite a few stories that have happened just around us. So I think they're all there. So that's the area that we go into as far as creative education is.
Okay, cool. Sekhar, I'll come to you last on this. Just Rahul, for at an online thing, like Meghna said, it seems antithetical that you can be creative online, right? So you guys have, I think, broken that a little bit, especially with your program with Micah and all the work that y'all have done with. I mean, entrepreneurship needs a lot of creativity itself. So a little bit about how you've tried to inject some sense of creative and creative education into all your programs.
I think the biggest challenge of online learning was there is no physical contact. I think that's been seen as a problem statement which we tried to solve initially. Now, since we've overcome that in some way, the second biggest challenge was how to be more creative now. Right? So, and one of the launches that we did was we started getting into a lot of these hackathons. So we started introducing hackathons when people can come together. There is 4 people coming, thinking about more ideas. We give them a problem statement, a case study of sorts, and try and solve that problem. So with Micah especially, with digital marketing and a couple of other programs, what we've done is get 4 people and make groups and start thinking about coming up with ideas. Creativity is not something which, as a right point, as I think Mr. Phani just rightly pointed, it's not just going to be coming out of a bolt, right? You need to do lots and lots of learning, and it also comes from your background as well. When I say background, in terms of how you've groomed yourself over a period of time, in terms of the years as well. Right? So I've seen a lot of people who comes with a very strong sports inclination, who's been active on sports. When it comes to real education, when it comes to real opportunities of growth, they think very tactical. They think very tactical because they've been doing that for so many years. Right? They've not realized the fact that out of sports, I've been playing those games at a tactical way that I actually applied on my day-to-day job as well. So that's just one example. Now, everything revolves around that. So what we try to do is, in this creativity, we try to understand the student as well. Everybody's creative lens. So one big thing what I've learned over a period of time is everybody calls themselves a creative guy. I don't think so anybody could question that part, right? So how to be creative, right? So how to be creative, and it's important that they need to nurture. And I completely agree with Meghna as well. So you need to nurture that, right? There has to be a discipline to it. Right? So what we have done is we understood each and every student, and when we make those groups as a hackathon of sort, we understand how each and every person is unique, and hence a unique set of ideas comes out from them. Right? So, and it is important in today's era to be more creative now. I think it's than any time else, and that it constantly pushes the student to be much more relevant in that lens. Right? So it's all about that competition. So I think, yeah, for me, we've kind of cracked it over in that online world with building those hackathons and getting into that space.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of new ideas and creativity of that kind actually emerges from these hackathons, because they're not carrying any baggage of existing education or anything. They're just out there trying to bring out a new point.
Yes. And it's very critical. Sorry,
carry on.
Yeah, it's very critical because what happens in hackathons is, right, they are out of their regular zone, which is maybe restrictive, too much pressure, work, everything is right. This is their freedom zone. This is where their right brain, left brain all start working together. That's where the creative lens comes out. And that's where the entire better quality of our product comes out as well. So you keep that space, right? So I think, yeah.
Good. Yes. Perfect. Good. You guys are giving me good segues. So left brain, right brain is what I wanted to talk about next. And, we'll start with you, Sekhar. We spoke a lot about creativity, and, NID has a lot of that built in the education as well as your operations. But there is also a certain element of technology that is needed, especially in today's day and age, which needs to merge and sync with the creativity in order to create the modern day content pieces that we see, whether it's art or whether it's music or whether it's films, whether it is textiles, whatever it is, there is almost nothing that can function without high tech. So a little bit about how what could be called a traditional institution has taken this creativity and blended it with all this tech to be relevant today.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a kind of a question which is part of a larger metamorphosis, because as you mentioned in your slides that we can't predict what will be in 2040. But at the same time, if we look back, the inventions came from the crisis. So definitely some invention will come. And what I look at it here, I just want to add, NIDs started when I said that there is no exam doesn't mean that we are very casual about it. It was a very rigorous jury-based program. Like, you take your ownership. If you are really passionate about, if you're not passionate about anything, if you don't love what you like to do, I don't think that you can succeed. And what we call is the method in madness. So mentorship is very important role, but there are smart textile we are talking about. Like, technology is definitely coming into it. And mind it, the biggest challenge for education institute like ours is, which I always question my colleagues, like the other faculty colleagues, that, the irony is the student age remains same and they're faster than us. And we are getting older. So what will be the whole gap to fill, and that's why mentor also has to practice. So learning never stops. That is if one can adapt, I think it really doesn't matter whether you're in NID or whether you are in Whistling Wood or whether we are in IDC, anywhere. I think it's also become global. Rather, the challenge comes because I believe that everybody is creative, but new education policy, if we touch upon, we just look at that how vocational training from the school levels now is becoming a serious topic. And I think it can open up another fantastic avenue. But yes, it is not easy to break that, the burden of legacy, saying that, I don't want to change. That is a human psyche, and that is completely dependent on individual. And I don't have any answer, but sooner we embrace the change, better for the country to flourish. This is what I look at it, and for us, new NIDs, we are getting students of today. We are not getting students coming necessarily, and they're doing wonders, so
yeah,
even
I mean,
textile, yeah.
So just to add to what you're saying, and we should talk about that. What I have seen is that in many times students actually adopt the new tech faster than the teachers. Yes. They actually take longer to kind of get onto it, right? So, and this is probably something that you will experience in an NID.
Absolutely. I think that happens, that always happens. And that's why I believe that taking from the past practice of NID, where students and teachers are working together in the workshop, is the best example.
Yep. The Meghna, one of the industries where we have seen almost a sea change in the last 10-15 years has been in the content creation industry. So the emergence of the OTT platforms, which did not exist 15 years ago. Not like they were like lower in the pecking order, it just did not exist. It's a whole new industry that, first YouTube and then the other OTT platforms created. So whether there is that, or whether it's the move from film to digital, or whether it's this whole immersive stuff, there's a lot of tech involved in content creation. So as a institute like Whistling Woods, how do you keep yourself current? How do you keep the students current, right? So that's it's difficult and it's critical. So how do you do that?
I always forget to unmute myself. It's extremely difficult because technology is changing so fast, right? So because technology keeps changing, and for a private institute that doesn't have funding from anywhere, it is really difficult to keep up the pace. So from the start, we decided that we were going to do tech partnerships. We were going to, really bring in the best technology for our students, because in the 2 or 3 years that they spend at Whistling Woods, by the time they should be ready for the future, not for the present. So a lot of this that you can see on screen has been our endeavor in terms of tying up with with various technology partners. This is a list of our technology partners from the start, from 2006 onwards, and we've just grown, in that field. And what happens when you bring these people on board is that they are able to then give you the current software, and they are able to do a lot of R&D on your campus to experiment with new technology. And our students are the ones that get the opportunity to work on that new tech. So many a times we've had Sony, for example, show our student films when they are showcasing a new camera or a new crane, and we've had various kind of labs on campus. So we've had the 3D center from Sony on campus. We've had a virtual reality lab now for 2 or 3 years, and we are doing a lot of work there to experiment with cinematic VR. So a lot of these things give our students the opportunity to meet not just the experts from the tech world, but also bring in their creativity and use that technology in their favor. So a small example here, I have a cinematography student, and she was just graduating, and she wanted to, go and get a job, and we sent her out for an interview, and she was really nervous. And when she came back, first thing she rushed into my office and she said, I was so nervous to go there because I was so scared of what I was going to see. But as soon as I entered that set, I could actually recognize everything that was there in terms of tech. And I knew that I could use it better than many of the people that I saw using it. So automatically my interview with the DOP went so well because I was so confident. So I think technology is something that, keeping pace with it has really given our students the confidence and a really good foothold in the industry, which is always looking for new talent. So that's what I'd like to say about how Whistling Woods has advanced in terms of technology.
So we've got about 10 minutes. So I just want to get Phani to talk about the tech bit, and then we'll take a couple of questions that have come in the chat box.
Yeah, one thing we have as an advantage is we have several engineering departments in the campus, and like computer science and electrical. So we have a lot of, the IDC School of Design has a lot of collaboration with many of these departments. So we do joint projects, we do projects in gaming, we do IP creation, we actually do game engine development, and coding level, exercises that happen. And so sometimes we have projects that happen between the two departments, we exchange. There are several professors in the computer science department work on computer graphics, and the visual part of it is done by the IDC students, and then we have collaborations with the computer science department. So so we try and take advantage of the ecosystem that we're in right now, and that happens to be a good advantage for us.
Good, yeah. In fact, we're just in the middle of planning a hackathon with IIT with Professor Moudgalya on promoting open source software for animation. Synfig, yeah. So we're just in the middle of planning that hackathon out right now. So it's pretty interesting too. So the question that we've got from the panel, I'm just putting it out there in the chat box for everyone to read as well. So essentially, it is about defining some base guidelines and norms for training and education in media and entertainment, right? Which historically in India has been missing. So, if you want to call yourself a doctor, you need to do, MBBS and then do your internship and then do your MD, internship, MS, and then you can become a surgeon. But anybody can call themselves a writer or a director. I could wake up one morning and say, today I'm a director. Because there were no underlying guidelines, there were no underlying training norms. And what did end up happening is a lot of people misuse that, abuse that, right? If you can't play the tabla or if you can't sing, you don't go and tell people I can sing or I can play the tabla. But that was unfortunately happening. So it's a 50-50 thing about how do you try and define norms of what is essentially considered a creative industry. But like Meghna said, and like we all know, there is a particular structure to the craft. So, what is your opinion about defining some, and, by the way, these norms exist the world over, just not in India. A little bit about how would you try and build out some kind of education and training norms for the media and entertainment industry. So, Sekhar?
I think this is definitely needs a collective thought. I mean, if I recall 2007, yes, it's all over. I recall one conference in France, which is to call E-Magician, where there is no difference between public-private schools to come together, no hangovers, no problem of egos and all. I think in India is always a challenge to bring people together, but I think it's this online platform is creating that opportunity today, where we are all coming together, keeping aside, and we are talking about sustainability, so definitely it's a good proposal. Maybe we can take it forward, also to make it a public policy, and but we also need to see at the same time that it doesn't discard the surprise element. Like India also gifted so many surprise filmmakers. They didn't go to school. FTI, Ray and Ghatak, they never went to schools, but they had become a textbook. So it's not holding on the history, but definitely it's a good thought. But this much I can say that we can always take it to our ministry to talk about take away from this particular session, put it together. But this needs a collective discussions, bringing many more other schools, keep aside whether it's private or public, it's for the country. Yeah. And also for the neighborhoods.
Right. So, I mean, Meghna, Whistling Woods is probably one of the first institutions that has actually tried to give some kind of defined framework to what is essentially a creative arts industry. So a little bit about what that journey was and how Whistling Woods essentially brought a lot of the industry in to help define it.
Yeah, definitely. So we use the industry, but like I said, that we had a lot of the industry on campus already. All our faculty were never teachers; they were all industry professionals. So that was one advantage that we always have had. But what we needed really was education pedagogy. We needed some direction as to what a child needs in terms of learning. How much practical, how much theory, how do we balance it? Both are equally important, and this came from our travels from all over the world, visiting film schools, world over, as well as being part of Select, which is an organization, like Sekhar mentioned, of film schools from all over the world. And all film schools come together in this one conference every year, maybe twice a year, and we discuss what's going on. And it was amazing to see that we were all going through the same problems. whether it was an Australian school or it was, or whether it was in India or in the US or Europe. So it was quite amazing to see how we all could come to one platform and discuss the issues we were facing and then find solutions for it. And that's an ongoing thing. So even now on Zoom, we are part of committees that we keep discussing things. And that also allows our students to collaborate with various students from all over the world. So I think that, the way Whistling Woods has really tackled it is by being really agile. Okay, by really being flexible, despite having a degree now attached to it, we've really been very dynamic in terms of how we teach our students, what we teach our students, and how our faculty grows on the academic side as well as the professionals.
Thank you so much. So, Phani, engineering is probably one of the most well-defined and well-structured industries, education fields today. So, what has that learning been when trying to implement some of that structure into IDC?
No, while we are actually physically situated inside an engineering college, I mean, IDC, right from the time that it started, had this constant demand for a separate kind of look. Okay, the person who started IDC was Professor Nadkarni around 50 years ago. He was with NID for some time, and before that he was at Ulm School of Design in Germany, and he came from there with ideas that he saw there. And it so happened that we physically were inside the IIT campus, but throughout this 50 years, we were constantly talking about how a design school should be and how it doesn't necessarily match with how an engineering school is typically. Okay, but having said all that, we do understand that we are inside an ecosystem, and we only gain out of trying to synchronize a few things with the engineering school that we have. For example, we offer something called minor courses. Okay, so any engineering graduate who's interested in creative or design can take up to 5 courses in IDC and get a minor degree along with the major degree that they graduated.
Nice.
So that has helped IDC really gel into the IIT system, and there are many students we are overloaded with those courses.
Great, that's nice. So we've got 2 minutes to go. So just last thoughts on, what is the one thing that each of you think that, just like in 1 line or 2 lines, what is the big addition that you think needs to happen to media and entertainment education to make it relevant for today? Try and give it to me in 30 seconds or 20 seconds if possible. Rahul?
Yeah, okay. See, I think the biggest change what we need currently is getting more real experiences while be part of the education system, but getting a real-time experience, which is as of now on-the-job experiences, what we call it as. But I think during that transition, it's important that while learning and real-time execution can get combined together. What it enables is when it comes to real jobs, when it comes to actually going out in the world, they're much better prepared. Right? So, and that's what we are trying to do over here as well. Right? So at UpGrad, we offer that. Right? So even when the course is happening, you're trying to take up industry projects, and start implementing it so that you get the hang of it. So I think that's the essence, and that's the requirement.
Thanks. Meghna?
I think faculty training. I think bringing more and more people to come and teach, industry as well. I think that upskilling, UpGrad can take this up, upskilling faculty to teach creative courses. Please. And in creative education. Yeah. So that I think is.
Thank you so much. Sekhar?
More public-private collaborations, blur the line, and ethical practice to be positioned in the global level of identity, so. Yeah.
Nice.
So because
and
of
Phani?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Meghna said. So I think we're finding it very difficult for people to come in to the teaching line and teach. I think we have to have more people. So we have to actually incentivize teaching. And also another thing is that we operate each of us as a separate bubble in the Indian industry. I think there are many small bubbles. I think we need to put all these bubbles together, make it a big bubble, So, we have uniformity in teaching and, courses and all this. I think
Yes.
we need to have some kind.
My secret wish is that one day we have a hoarding for India's best film educator that is larger than India's biggest film actor.
Creative educator, CC, not
yes,
just
creative educator. Anyway, thank you so much. We are closing exactly on time, which is surprising because I'm the moderator. I'm not good with timings. So thank you so much, Rahul, Sekhar, Phani, Meghna, and hope everybody who's watching it got some interesting information out of it. So focus on the creativity inside, and look at the media and entertainment industry as a serious industry. By the way, it's the second largest export of the US after arms. So, that's the potential that this industry has. It can become India's largest exporter. So, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Shekhar.
Thanks. May I say, add to Chaitanya, do you know why we finished on time? We got 2 animators today. Thank you.
Correct. You will not add even one extra frame.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
It was a lovely
Bye,
session.
everybody.